ever just wake up in the morning and go, ugh?
No.
And then go back to bed? Are you feeling unmotivated, tired, and burnt out? Find yourself taking long, unnecessary walks in nature? Is this you? Fuck my dreams. Want the advice of a licensed YouTube philosopher? Then this is the video for you. See you on the other side. It is now 2022, and I have started the new year right by installing 2 new apps on my phone. Number 1, the McDonald's app. Number 2, TikTok. So the other day, I woke up to the best phone notification that I've ever had, and it was from the McDonald's app, and it read, "Free large fries, no purchase necessary." Supersize me? Heck yeah. Secondly, you can now find me on TikTok. Several of you guys have asked me, Megan, why don't you have a TikTok yet? And you know what? Fine, I'll do it for the people. Truthfully, I held off on making a TikTok account because, I can't be dominant on 2 social media platforms, YouTube and TikTok. I gotta give the other people a chance, But if I ever figure out how to use TikTok, some quality content will be dropping over there sometime soon. Yo, TikTok's about to get wild. So before, I didn't used to check my phone very often, right? Which led to me having a really terrible response time to text messages or emails. But then one day I downloaded the Netflix app on my phone and I check my phone all the time now. Anyway, this video is intended to be on motivation, productivity, and burnout, which is fitting because it is now the start of a new year and the fact that we're still in the middle of this pandemic. Honestly, 2021 was rough for me. Like, there was so much going on in 2021 that at the end of the year, I was so burnt out. Like, I was so burnt out that I read a self-help book. And then I watched a TED Talk. Okay, you've hit rock bottom when you've done both of those things in succession. I've also been reading a lot lately, so I apologize in advance if I suddenly start whipping out some random quotes in the middle of this video. I usually don't like quoting other people because, write your own damn quotes. Create your own legacy. But I just have a lot on my mind and YouTube is now my outlet for this, so welcome to my stream of consciousness. So I'm actually not really quite sure how I appear in my videos, but I like to get some stuff done sometimes. Believe it or not, I'm not sitting around making YouTube videos all day. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't mean to trivialize YouTube at all. YouTube is actually a lot of work, and I actually don't think that I would have had time to make YouTube videos throughout undergrad, which I do think about quite a bit. But I have so much fun making these videos that it doesn't really feel like work. But what I mean to say is that I actually do value productivity and, hopefully accomplishing tangible things. These videos are accomplishments to me, but there are also a lot of things encompassed in these videos that I want to pursue outside of the media form, right? So for example, computational chemistry or bioengineering. What these videos are vehicles for me to share all of these things with other people in a scalable and hopefully comedic way. Okay, so now I'd like to present what I like to call the cycle of self-deprecation. It starts with, I have to do said task. I don't do said task. I now hate myself. And then you're just stuck in this cycle, of self-deprecation. You don't do the thing, and then you now hate yourself, and that thing is still there, and then you hate yourself some more because you didn't accomplish that said thing. And so what I believe is the key to breaking out of this cycle is this little thing called motivation. I think motivation is such an interesting concept. So from our intro to psychology class that we may or may not have taken, we have all probably, or maybe not, have heard of the terms extrinsic and intrinsic motivation. Now, I am no psychologist, but I am a philosopher of life. Okay, you know what's so funny? Let me just tell the story really quickly. Towards the end of my undergrad, I started to get really, kind of burnt out or tired of taking STEM or engineering classes. So if you're new here, I studied bioengineering in college. I mean, most of you guys know this already. But basically, I suddenly had this urge to study philosophy. I found this really cool philosophy class that I really wanted to take. And the course title was Sex, Death, and Data. Who doesn't want to take a class called Sex, Death, and Data? So I enrolled in the class and I got kicked out of it after the second week. Okay, another really random story of philosophy in college was that in college, I had a neighbor who lived in the apartment right next door to mine who was a philosophy major. And I would just come home from school every day and he would just be in my kitchen or sitting on top of my couch spouting things about philosophy, reciting Aristotle and Socrates. And then we would just get into philosophical debates and arguments. And And so essentially what I'm trying to say is that I have been a philosopher in training for the past few years and I realized it just now. Okay, anyway, back to motivation. Let's quickly define extrinsic and intrinsic motivation. Intrinsic motivation is motivation that comes from within. And extrinsic motivation is when we do things for some sort of external reward. And so personally, I think that you need a combination of both and that they're complementary. Sort of like the sides of a Mobius strip. Whenever I strive for something, I'm extrinsically motivated because I know it's gonna have lasting consequences on myself as my growth as a person. But then I'm also extrinsically motivated, right? Because I need some sort of target to work towards. So for example, if I'm taking a class, I use that A or that grade as a tangible factor that I'm going to achieve from all of the work that I've put in terms of studying for this class. So for me, intrinsic motivation gives me that intangible effect, whereas extrinsic motivation gives me something tangible to work towards. Okay, so I'm gonna now bring in the very first quote of this video, which is something that Ernest Hemingway said in his memoir, A Movable Feast, which is basically a memoir where he recounts all of his struggles as a writer in Paris.
I had learned already never to empty the well of my writing, but always to stop when there was still something there in the deep part of the well, and let it refill at night from the springs that fed it.
He doesn't stop working each day when he reaches a point of exhaustion. Instead, he stops when he still has a little bit left. So how I interpret this in the context of my life is that motivation is a finite concept. It's like a tank. It's also really calming to me to embrace the fact that we're not always going to be super motivated or super productive every day. You know, instead we're like sine waves where we're gonna oscillate between periods of high and low motivation. And I think the sooner that we accept that, the sooner we're gonna be more comfortable when, you know, we get stuck in that local maxima in our productivity. I don't know, maybe it took the whole pandemic for me and other people to realize it, but you don't always have to be revving your engines 24/7. You know, sometimes you just need to slow down and have some chicken nuggets, which is probably cheaper if you purchase them through the McDonald's app. Okay, moving on to the second quote of today's video is from this book called Franny and Zoe, which is written by J.D. Salinger, who you may know as the author of Catcher in the Rye. Franny, who is one of the main characters, said,
I'm sick of ego, my own and everybody else's. I'm sick of not having the courage to be an absolute nobody.
And you know, this like hit me, you know, when I read this, you know, because why can't we do things just for the sake of doing that something and not just for the title or glory that's associated with that something? For example, making a YouTube video, not because it'll necessarily give us more views, but because it's a video that we're truly passionate about and want to share with others. So another quote that I love is
far inferior to the work done without such anxiety. Those who work selfishly for results are miserable.
Yo, that is like, that's fucking inspirational. Here's a tip that I have for you that really keeps me motivated and driven every day. And it's to find something small each day to look forward to. And I know this sounds ultra lame, but it actually works. And for me, that small thing is a good breakfast and coffee. Like after I have my chia pudding and iced coffee in the morning, I feel like I'm on top of the world. I feel like I'm gonna blow the roof off this house because I'm gonna get so much work done that day. Okay, people say that the trick for them in terms of getting out of bed in the morning is to put their alarm clock on the other side of the room, right? So they force themselves to get out of bed so they can turn off their annoying alarm. No. I think the solution to really getting yourself out of bed in the morning is a good breakfast. Like if you wake up in the morning and you're like, oh, I just can't get out of bed, you know, because I have so much work to do. Well, here's the thing. If you think about those delicious scrambled eggs and butter toast that you're about to make for yourself, I guarantee you'll be out of bed in 10 seconds. All right, productivity, the next part of this video. You achieve the extraordinary by doing the small ordinary every day. So I can imagine that I sort of appear chaotic from my YouTube videos, but you know, there's a method to this madness. I don't know, I feel like I don't really seem like this type of person. Every Sunday I'll sit down, you know, in my little Notion planner and I'll actually plan out what I'm gonna do every single day of that week. I'm a firm believer that if you wake up one day and you don't already have planned out what you're gonna do that day, bruh, just watch Netflix all day because you messed up. And so sometimes I think with my productivity, there's two extremes. There's that one extreme where when I'm given a task or project, I get really excited about it and I just want to work on it all day because I'm really excited to get it done. And the problem with that, right, which refers back to Hemingway's quote, is that if you work all day to the point where you're burnt out or you have nothing left in your reserve, then you won't have anything the next day to keep up that same level of motivation or productivity that you had in that very first day. But then there's also the other extreme, right, where it's just so difficult to even start doing a certain task. Like, the process of getting started in something is an even greater burden than doing the task itself. Now I'm gonna quote Hemingway again. Oh my god. So Hemingway, what a genius.
All you have to do is write one true sentence. Write the truest sentence that you know.
And so in his case, all you have to do is write one sentence, and then that next sentence will follow. And sometimes the hardest part, is just writing that one sentence. And here's another thing. It's not necessarily the amount of time that you spend working on something, but rather the quality and focus that you have dedicated during that time that you spent working on that thing. In other words, 1 hour of hardcore focus is much more productive than, say, 6 hours of maybe grinding in a certain direction that gets you nowhere, or just sort of loitering around. And another thing that I've learned about myself is that I don't necessarily have to be actively working on something to be working on it. For example, if I have a problem, I like to read the problem and then understand it and then go and do other tasks. Because while I'm doing these other tasks, my subconscious is working on this problem. And that's sort of how YouTube is for me too. Like, I'll get an idea for a YouTube video, but then I won't sit down and spend 6 hours writing or preparing a script for the YouTube video. I mean, I would never do that, but what I mean to say is plan out the points that I'm going to say as I'm going throughout my day or week. And in that way, all of the points or stuff that I bring up in my video are now organically inspired by all the elements of life that I've witnessed between the time that I've come up with that video idea to the time that I actually film it. And so sometimes if I get a really good idea or a joke or anything, I'll just text myself. I legit have an ongoing conversation with myself on my phone. And sometimes I'll text myself an idea and immediately I'll get a text notification. And sometimes I'll be like, oh my god, someone's texting me. And then I realize, oh shoot, it's myself. So one way that I have managed burnout at the end of my sparkling 2021 is to remove myself from my current world. Or in other words, immerse yourself in a world that's orthogonal to the one that you're always in. For example, I would say that my day-to-day world is very scientific. And the issue with that is that you'll begin to perceive everything through this sort of scientific lens. And how I extract myself from that world is to immerse myself in a world that is not scientific. For example, I will read Hemingway, or I will write about something that's very humanistic. By immersing myself in a world that's orthogonal to the one that I always find myself in, I am able to add new dimensions to my life. Alright guys, that's it. I'll see you soon on YouTube and potentially TikTok. Bye!